Okay, great. Can everyone see this then? If you just give little pluses in the chat, if you can just see the screen. If we can get a couple of pluses, I'll just yeah, lovely. Okay, fabulous. Yeah, so um yeah, it's just a little bit of Zoom etiquette to start with. So just yeah, if we can make sure that we're muted um um when we're not speaking. Feel free to add your pronouns to your Zoom name, and then just if you agree with something, just a couple of pluses in the chat, minus signs to disagree, and if you want to say something, type a one in the chat. And I think people have got their videos off, so we don't have to worry about that last one. Okay. So, yeah, if we do some intros, just I guess we've already done this, but I guess I'll introduce myself. So, yeah, I'm Steph. I use she or they, and yeah, I've part of Fossil Free Pride, and I've been involved in Fossil Free Pride now for oh gosh, I think like well since the start. So I think that's about 4 years now, and um, yeah, and I will, yeah, talk a little bit more about what Fossil Free Pride is about. But yeah, it's yeah, really nice to see you all here. And yeah, for the people on YouTube who are watching in the future, really nice to see you guys too. I hope you're watching in the future in a post-fossil fuel industry world where we're all living happily without fossil fuels and post-capitalism. And yeah, let us know in the comments what that's like. Um, anyways, agenda. So this workshop is gonna be split into two parts. We'll have a break in the middle depending on how people feel. Um, But the first half is going to be talking about why the climate crisis is an QIA plus issue. And then the second half, you're using the information, the knowledge that we've gained. We're going to be thinking about what we need to do with this, how we can reclaim pride and build our community power, and look at the histories of resistance that have done this before and what we can learn from it. So, yeah, who is Fossil Free Pride? Well, we are a group of queers with a very obvious connected interest in both the climate movement and queer liberation. And we're calling for prides all over the UK to sign the Fossil Free Pride Pledge. And this is a pledge that refuses sponsorship or partnerships with fossil fuel corporations, and importantly, any of the big banks that fund fossil fuel corporations. And I think, as Yara mentioned, we've got 25 prides that so far who have signed this pledge. So yeah, this is a pretty big achievement. Our very first pride was a couple of years ago now. It was Trans Pride Brighton, and our most recent Pride was last week. Norwich Pride signed the pledge most recently. And yeah, we're currently on 25, more to come. Hopefully very soon. Some announcements next week on some more signatures. So yeah, exciting stuff coming from Fossil Free Pride. So what kind of stuff do Fossil Free Pride do? We put pressure on prides to cut ties with the fossil fuel industry. So we do this through the pledge, but we have a diverse range of tactics. We link up with other groups to do this, both climate groups, queer groups, but also you know, other groups as well. We do it through actions and mobilizing our community. We have hosted alternative prides in the past as well. In our very first year, I think it was a pandemic year, we hosted a alternative pride online, and it was like it was so cool. Um, we had someone from the Gay Liberation Front do a talk. We also had talks from Queer House Party and Friends of the Earth, um, and then had like a sick like queer disco, online disco afterwards, and like some performances like drag and poetry. It was like obviously so much better than like any ExxonMobil sponsored Pride that you could go to in Edinburgh. So um, yeah, um, and we'd like to love to do similar stuff as well in the future. Um, and we also do knowledge sharing and consciousness raising kind of stuff similar to what we're doing right now. Um, um, and we try to kind of make all of this as like kind of accessible and manageable for like people as possible to avoid burnout. I think that's a big part of what we do. Yeah, and yeah, here's a nice picture of us at London Pride a couple of years ago now. Um, yeah, first kind of like open question to the group here. So I know people might already come to this workshop with some like ideas on this question already of why the climate crisis is an LGBTQIA plus issue. Um, and but some people might be coming completely fresh to this. So yeah, if you can just like spend like a couple of minutes maybe just thinking about this question, why is the climate crisis a queer issue? And just post some thoughts in the chat. Um, some kind of like preconceptions maybe that you're coming to this workshop with. And then maybe we can like expand on these. We can discuss them if anyone is like open to kind of like speaking a little bit. And then obviously through the rest of the workshop, we'll kind of like expand on some of these and go a little bit further. But for now, if you can like in the chat, just kind of post some initial thoughts on like answers to this question. Um, you don't have to like um to speak afterwards. It's just yeah, just just in the chat. Just post some comments if you can. Spend a couple of minutes. Yep, yeah, excellent point there by Yara, that indeed queer people are humans, despite what some people would like us to believe. Yeah, Amy has mentioned, yeah, climate crisis makes existing inequality worse, and then queer communities are more at risk of homelessness, where heat waves and other impacts will be felt more. which is an excellent point. Um, and Paula has said, as I understand it, queer people are statistically more precarious financially and with regards to housing, so disproportionately negatively affected by the impacts of climate change, displacement, pollution, etc. Exactly. Considering this by Ramona, so considering that low mitigation and adaptation to climate crisis connected socioeconomic marginalization and queers, particularly BIPOC queers, are in that population, they are more at risk. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, this kind of connection of like being kind of like already more kind of precariously living precariously, puts us at greater risk. Um, is like kind of yeah this like connection through these, and I think yeah this is definitely something that yeah we'll be talking about like a lot more through this. This is like a really interesting comment by Cachadora. So like a long history of queerness relating to nature, such as being called pansies, violets being associated with Sappho, the lavender menace, Oscar Wilde's. Um, I can't see this because there's like some symbol in the way. Okay, yeah, Oscar Wilde's green carnation. We also need non-judgmental spaces, our pets, trees, etc. Don't judge us. Yeah, this is fantastic. Um, yeah, and this is yeah, this doesn't, come up very often, but this is yeah, definitely something as well. Yeah, queers are less likely to be competitive in the capitalist sense, maybe. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I really like the link to capitalism and wild. This is definitely also something that will very much come up um, throughout the workshop as well. So yeah, really good collection of thoughts here. So yeah, it's really great that like people are like yeah have already come to this workshop with some ideas. Um, and I think yeah we'll definitely see like um, some of these being expanded on in here. I think so. Um, okay, maybe yeah we can move on then. Um, and have like a little interactive thing now. So I hope this can work. I might have to write. I have to come out of full screen. But basically, if I can copy this into the chat, and then if people can go to this slide, people are able to open this and then go to this slide. Okay, wonderful. It seems like it. And then are people able to move these circles around? Basically, what we're gonna do is if you see this question here, um, I'm gonna ask you to move these circles to where you kind of identify on this spectrum line. So we've got this spectrum line of disagree to agree. And the question is, are the roots of the climate crisis and LGBTQIA plus oppression unrelated? Um, agree or disagree? So I'll say it again. The roots of the climate crisis and LGBTQIA plus oppression are unrelated. Disagree or agree? Um, where do you kind of like sit on this spectrum line? Are people able to move the circles if you come to this slide? Or is it kind of like is it like a permission issue?
On my screen, where I'm looking at the slides, it looks like people are moving them. It's just on the screen share. It's not updating, maybe.
Ah, really? Okay, hold on.
I can see,
Oh yeah, okay.
yeah,
Weird. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay, now okay. Interesting. Okay. So I just have to I have to exit full screen to see an updated. Right. Okay. Has everyone finished moving their circles then? Um, if I just go to full screen. Okay. 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 So if you're on a phone, you can't do it, but okay. Okay, it looks like everyone has finished, and most people have put it very close to disagree. Um, um, so I'm going to ask people if anyone is brave enough to kind of explain why they placed it where they did. Um, so, um, w would anyone be okay to come off mute and just, yeah, explain why they placed their marker where they did on this spectrum line? Just, yeah, feel free to just come off mute and just give a little explanation. Anyone brave enough?
I can go if, sorry if anybody else was about to. Ramona here. Um, for me, the way I define queer, it's not about sexuality or gender identity. For me, queerness is about a way of not living according to, capitalist, patriarchal, uh, normative way of living. So in that sense, for me, queerness is about having a society where we do not exploit each other, nature, and all of that. So I don't separate those things because the way I define queer, all of it is kind of belongs together. So oppressing queer people is part of, oppressing all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I fully agree with that answer. Um, was there anyone else who like had a slightly different reason for replacing it on the spectrum line, or was it kind of all similar kind of things? Um, I see, yeah, Cachadora, yeah, you say yeah, it all kind of links back through to capitalism, which I think, yeah, is absolutely the kind of the crucial thing here. Um, um, yeah, I think also your answer kind of to the previous kind of slide as well is like also very much linked here, you know, the negative way that nature is viewed in kind of like the same breath as queer people, you know, is also very much kind of central to this question is here as well. Um, um, which is yeah something that is yeah not very often brought up when I've done this workshop in the past. So it's yeah really interesting. Um, yeah, any other kind of um, thoughts on this one? If not, that's fine because yeah, I think you know the fact that yeah it's all linking to capitalism. I think is a very valid answer. So um, yeah, very happy to move on from there. Um, onto the next slide. So yeah, I'm gonna now kind of look at some of the reasons why um, uh, the like why the climate crisis is an LGBTQIA plus issue, and this is like gonna cover a lot of the things that people have already raised. Um, And yeah, starting with what I think a few people have already mentioned, which is queer people are typically, more likely to be living precariously already. And if you're living precariously, then you're already more vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. And yeah, you can see here that there was a 2010 survey that around 70% of LGBTQ adults had been homeless at some point in their lives. This was in New York, but um, I'm sure there is similar numbers elsewhere. Presumably greater in other areas as well. So yeah, there's strong evidence that the queer population lives precariously, and it's obvious that if you are living precariously, then you are more vulnerable to the impacts of the climate crisis. Which I think people have already mentioned already in this workshop, which is fantastic. Another thing though is what happens after these disasters. So if we have a climate disaster, so here we have the effects of a hurricane. So this is Hurricane Michael in Florida from 2018. And of course, these disasters cause devastation for everyone. Um, um, Obviously, a hurricane doesn't know if you're queer or not. But after a disaster, and a city is rebuilding itself, and funds are being allocated for this rebuilding, is typically the most marginalized in society that are thought of last. It's well, here we have an LGBT center that is ruined and needs repair. But when funds are being allocated, it's not going back to an LGBT center, even though it's vital for queer people. Yeah. This is just not where the funds are. Oops, sorry, skipped a slide there. This is just not where the funds are being allocated. We're thought of last. And this is what happened here. This LGBT center was not rebuilt for a substantial amount of time afterwards. It took a significant amount of time for Panama City to have another space for queer people. Again, after Hurricane Michael, which is what you would expect after a disaster, where our social roots in society are deepened, and we're thought of last in these situations. So this is another way that our oppression is kind of compounded in these situations, and a way that the climate crisis is very much linked to our own oppression and is made a queer issue. So our precarity makes it an issue before and during a disaster, but it also affects us after disasters as well. But another reason why the climate crisis is an LGBTQIA plus issue is because solidarity and reaching across struggles is part of our queer history. It's part of our queer liberation movement. because the phrase "none of us are free until we are all free" is a phrase that is ingrained within our movement. No one is safe until we are all safe. And our liberation cannot exist at the expense of the oppression of others. It's such a huge part of our history, like our very rich and proud history, that that we have international solidarity with others who are experiencing oppression. And yeah, it's something that we can be very proud of in our movement, and it's something that we can learn from and use going forward, and it's something that is absolutely necessary as part of the climate movement as well. And we need to use the climate movement needs the queer movement's rich history and our learnings if we are to survive and intervene in the fossil fuel industry and reimagine a new future. And international solidarity as a key part of our history is something that is crucial to be used as part of the climate movement as well. So this is another reason why yeah, we believe that the climate crisis is a queer issue, because the climate movement requires queer people and requires us to be part of the climate movement. And the climate movement requires us to create a space for queer people in it. And that's what part of what Fossil Free Pride sets out to do as well. It's one of our goals. So yes, until we're all safe, we are struggling together. So yeah, a couple of phrases then that you might already be familiar with. So yeah, these are a couple of phrases that kind of cover how corporations kind of like conceal like damaging, harmful behavior and make out that they are ethical organizations. So we have greenwashing, which is the environmental term. So it's a superficial or insincere display of concern for the environment that is shown by an organization. And this is to conceal or gloss over the environmental damage caused by an organization or activity. And then we have the queer equivalent, which is pinkwashing. And this is deliberately highlighting support for gay rights while ignoring or downplaying other relevant human rights issues. And the practice of deliberately marketing as gay-friendly while deflecting attention from other relevant human rights abuses. And we're going to see, yeah, a pretty nauseating example of this right now. So yeah, I think we're all kind of familiar with this. This scene, especially during Pride Month. Yeah, this is the kind of the horrendous scene that plagues us every kind of summer. And this is kind of like the kind of minimal effort that people or that corporations will go towards pinkwashing to show support for the LGBTQ community of let's just slap a rainbow on our logo, and people will believe that we are a good company. And yeah, God, doesn't this slide just make you feel completely nauseous? Yeah, yeah, let's just move on swiftly. So yeah, corporations do this obviously because it allows them a kind of what we call a social license for them to continue to do the destructive or harmful behavior that they are currently doing. And one of the reasons why we run our campaign for them to for prides to stop taking sponsorship from fossil fuel companies and banks is to get rid of this social license, to show that we don't want these kind of corporations in our spaces, that we don't accept this kind of like business activity, this destructive activity, that the queer community doesn't accept it. And yeah, and so we want to take away this social license as kind of one method of targeting the fossil fuel industry. But one kind of additional thing to note here is also we need divestment. So we need financial industries to stop investing in fossil fuels, which is why we also include banks in our pledge. We need prides to stop taking sponsorship from banks that invest in fossil fuels. So we need to put pressure on these banks to stop investing in fossil fuels, and one way we try to do that is to get prides to stop taking sponsorship from these banks until they stop investing in fossil fuels. Yeah, so that's why we run our Fossil Free Pride Pledge campaign. So yeah, we're gonna take a little 5-minute break, if that sounds good to people. So I guess we'll come back at 1:45, or well, 44 past. And yeah, go get a coffee or a tea, a gay little matcha latte if you want, a little water, and then yeah, we can restart at 6:45, and we'll be talking about kind of with this knowledge, what does this require us to do, and spoiler is it requires us to take action. So yeah, if we return in 5 minutes, 6:45, and we'll restart then. Okay, we're back. Cool, is everyone here? Give a little plus in the chat if you're back. Cool. Seeing some pluses? Yes. Okay, people are here. Cool, I think, yeah, we can get started. It's 1:45 now, so. Okay, so second half of the workshop is on what do we do with the information that we've just learned from the first half. And yeah, as I kind of hinted, the answer is action. So yeah, I think one of the slides in the first half was about how our movement historically has been one of international solidarity. Our siblings across the world are all of our concern. So if this is true, then climate action is a necessity. And the existence of the climate crisis is a threat to the safety and the welfare of queer people and communities. So we need to take action. So just gonna go through some examples of some good queer action, and some non-queer action, just some climate action as well, some good inspo all around, just some good history of resistance that we can use as inspiration and to learn from as well. So gonna start with the gay OGs, at least in the UK perspective. The Gay Liberation Front, um, who started the very first Pride in the UK in 1972. As I mentioned earlier, they actually spoke at the very first Fossil-Free Pride event that we did as well, when we did an alternative Pride in our first year, which was amazing. And we've included here a line from their manifesto, which they wrote in 1971, which is amazing. They say, "We do not intend to ask for anything. We intend to stand firm and assert our basic rights. If this involves violence, it will not be we who initiate this, but those who attempt to stand in our way to freedom," which I think is pretty rad. So yeah, some good queer resistance inspiration here from the 1970s. And I think, yeah, this is good inspiration because you know, they didn't obscure you know, this relationship between you know, their oppressors and the oppressed, which I think does happen now. They were very clear on who their enemies were, and did not try to get along with them or um, assimilate at all. Which, when you look at mainstream Pride now, is yeah, a long way away from this. So good inspiration from the Gay Liberation Front there. A more recent example is from Greece, and yeah, we chose this example. So this is street protests in Athens that were organized firstly in 2018, but are now every summer. And this is in response to Zach/Zaki, a queer activist who was murdered by cops in Greece in 2018. And every year there are protests, street protests to commemorate this. And this is like a fantastic example, I think, because, you know, like this could very easily have happened. Someone could have been murdered and then just had been ignored and forgotten about. But you know, the queer community in Athens didn't allow it to be ignored. They come out every year and take over the streets and have a very political character to them when they do this, which is yeah, fantastic. So another, I think, very good example of queer resistance there. And then this isn't queer, but a climate example. So this is feminist groups in Colombia who are resisting armed conflicts in from paramilitary groups, essentially, that are protecting coal mining projects in Colombia. So this is armed violence protecting coal mining projects and profits that are displacing communities in Colombia. And essentially, typically, it's women who are resisting this because often men are hired and given a wage, and it falls on women to fight back, and they're met with extreme violence when they do this. So it's an extremely inspirational climate resistance with another intersectional lens to it, where whilst not queer, yeah, extremely inspirational forms of resistance happening in Colombia. And then more locally, another climate example with this does have a queer twist to it as well. So the Silvertown Tunnel is currently being constructed in Newham and North Greenwich. Despite the air pollution that it would cause, the increases to air pollution that it would cause, already like this area is among the worst in the UK. And this is being funded by Macquarie Capital. And Macquarie Capital actually sponsored the LGBT Awards last year. And you might have seen that Foster Pride protested that. Alongside some other legends, including Tipping Point. And we successfully got Shell and BP to be removed as sponsors. They were also sponsoring alongside Macquarie Capital. So yeah, just incredible, like just the worst set of sponsors you could possibly imagine. But yes, this is yeah, another example of yeah, community resistance, because yeah, there's locally a very like strong community campaign against this this project. In a historically in a disproportionately Black and brown community as well, which is yeah, yeah, another reason why it's just absolutely horrific project that's going ahead as well. So I think this is the last example that I have. Yes, it is. But I wanted to ask if other people had some examples of some radical queer organizing that they wanted to share. Either in the chat, or if you wanted to come off mute, just some that maybe are personal to you, that you think are like really worth sharing, that you think are good inspiration. And you know, doesn't necessarily have to be queer. If you just think it's like really, you know, useful, good examples. Yeah. Either just in the chat or come off mute. Okay, yeah, Dyke Project, yes, Paula, yeah, I've seen yeah, some of that stuff, especially with the Palestine organizing that they've been doing as well. Just yeah, like fantastic work that the Dyke Project have been doing. They've been able to like mobilize a lot of people, especially like yeah, just whenever there is any kind of like turf event, they're able to mobilize people immediately, which is like fantastic. That's like absolutely like needed. Like that kind of thing. Like that, a group that can mobilize immediate responses to that kind of these kind of events is like fantastic. So yeah, big up the Dyke Project for sure. Anyone else got some wicked examples? It doesn't have to be recent, it can be historical as well. And it can be small stuff, little local things. Drag queen Patty Garnier. I don't think I've heard of her, but I will look her up. Do you want to say a little bit more about what kind of stuff that she does? Oh yeah, and Ramona, if you want to.
Yes, sorry. I right now I can't remember the name, but there's this organization in Mexico where people on bicycle respond to crisis, because simply abolishing law enforcement, but also because because of the femicide going on in Mexico. So this is a crisis response, and this organization is trans non-binary women on bicycles responding to crisis. So if you see something happening on the street, there's this WhatsApp group, so you text that there's some abuse going on this street corner, and then whoever is closer, people get together. So a couple of them on bikes get there to kind of mediate and respond to the crisis, which I think is actually a hands-on nice thing.
Yeah,
I
that's
tried to
cool.
come up with the name of it and post it in the chat.
Yeah, that's really nice. If you do remember the name, that'd be really good to know, because I have some friends who want to kind of do something like a little bit
Absolutely.
similar.
I have it on my Signal, so I find it and put it in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be really lovely. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think we've got some more suggestions in the chat as well. So we got and I'll go from the top to the bottom. So when I went to a Shabbat organized by the Jewish bloc at the Palestine marches, which people ended up being full of queer Jews of all ages. Lovely, love stuff like that. Queers for Palestine, Scotland. Yeah, a lot of Palestine stuff. Queers for Palestine. Yeah, nice. Yeah, ACT UP from. Yeah, yes. Okay, yes. So Patty Gania. Nice. Raises money, educates. Queer hikes. I love it. Nice. Very cool. Nice. Lots of great examples. Very cool. Very cool. In the 70s and 80s, Birkenstock and crunchy lesbians were heavily associated with environmentalist movements. There is a nod to this in the film Pride, as the lesbians in it are vegans. Okay, very nice. I didn't know this. Yeah, I love when people give some examples from like that era. I always learn something, so that's nice. Cool, good stuff. All right. Well, I'll move on then to the last little bit of this workshop, which is just about pride and reclaiming it, how we can do that. And yeah, looking a little bit about how it's changed over the years. So, yeah, if we think firstly about the origins of pride, at least in the UK, we mentioned earlier the Gay Liberation Front, who started the very first Pride in 1972. And if we think about what it looked like back in the 70s and 80s, it was an energetic, revolutionary grassroots movement. It was filled with people who were actively working to a working class revolution, and were working militantly towards that. It was something that was dynamic. As I say, it was energetic, and this was kind of characterized by the Gay Liberation Front and of groups like Lesbians and Gays Support the Miners, this is kind of how we think of our movement in its kind of glory days, if we want to say, in the 70s and 80s. By no means a perfect movement, you would say as well. But you would also say, yeah, it was all these things. It was energetic. It was dynamic. It did have revolutionary aims. It was militant. And it was a grassroots movement. If we move forward a little bit to now, And what do our prides look like now? The answer is very different. So we have prides that are sponsored by Barclays, which is just incredible. When you just like take that step from what I've just described from the Gay Liberation Front and the prides of the 1970s and 80s to pride sponsored by Barclays, is just blows your mind. It just doesn't make sense. But yeah, here we are. And they're often just corporate spectacles. Um, they are just parades of, well, very often, at least the big ones, parades of corporations, sprinkled in with other things, but typically not radical politics, at least. There are, beyond the corporations, it's you know, fun, nice things, some community stuff maybe, but yeah, certainly not what you would associate with the Gay Liberation Front. Of course, you know, a movement doesn't have to be the same as it was in the 70s or 80s. That's not what we are saying, but yeah, of course, it feels a bit, yeah, it feels just a bit horrible to see it get turned into, yeah, a corporate parading nightmare that it is right now. But there is also the opportunity of what it can be. Um, and yeah, what could it be in the future? And what do we want it to be? And we hope that it could be a strong movement that is capable of disrupting um, the conservative social control that we see right now, that is capable of joining up struggles, that is capable of resisting the rise in the far right that we are seeing right now. That is the pride, or that is the queer movement that we want to see, and pride is a big part of that, and we want pride to reflect that. And this is kind of what we want Philosophy Pride to be a part of working towards. That's what we see ourselves as, alongside other groups, of course. We hope that our group and our campaign with the Philosophy Pride Pledge can play a small part with that. That we are part of this queer movement as well as the climate movement, and that we eventually will get to this new stage with a stronger movement that is capable of disrupting this kind of conservative mass psychology that we have, and that we can have this this strong movement that we need. So to kind of summarize this kind of section, what we don't want Pride to be, we don't want it to be undemocratic. So right now, if you look at most Pride boards, Pride is decided by typically a handful of people. So what your local Pride looks like is decided by, maybe like 5 people, sometimes less. And they just get to decide what Pride looks like for maybe thousands of people, which is just an incredibly undemocratic way of doing things. There might be some processes to feed into that, but ultimately, like 5 people might make a decision of what Pride looks like. And yeah, if you could ask me to change anything about Pride, that would be the number one thing, to make it less undemocratic. We don't want it to be about appeasing corporations. So currently, prides are scared of losing their corporate sponsorships. They don't want to do a certain. They don't want their prides to. They might not do a certain thing at Pride just in case it like affects their corporate sponsorship. Which is just, you know, they're putting their corporate, they're putting the feelings of corporations before their own queer community. And we don't want them to normalize the presence of police at Pride, which has absolutely happened over the last few decades. This just like would be just not make any sense in early Pride for obvious reasons, and now it has been completely normalized again by a handful of people. It is just 5 people who decide that police get to be there, and have normalized this over the years. And yeah, we don't want radical queer politics to be silenced. Again, this is done because the corporations might be upset about it, or the 5 people who run Pride want to assimilate into capitalist society or whatever. So that's what we don't want Pride to be like, but what do we want Pride to be? Well, on the other hand, we do want it to be democratic. We want the queer community as a whole to have a voice. We don't want it to be restricted to the 5 people who currently decide how Pride is ran. We want it to be for queers, not corporations. This should just like make complete sense for everyone. It's bonkers how you'd be surprised like how often we go into like a meeting or have like email communication with like Pride board, and we ask them to drop a sponsor, and we'll try to relate to them and say this is queer people don't want this, and they'll reply and say, yeah, well, still we need this corporation. So yeah, it's just madness really. And then finally, yeah, we want radical queer politics to not only be allowed but to thrive, and we want a radical queer community to thrive as well. So yeah, in conclusion, yeah, get involved, get stuck in, cause a little bit of mischief. If you want to get involved with Possibly Pride, we have local groups to get involved with, and there is also the national group who organize as well on a national level. If you want to get involved in any of those, if you just message the Possibly Pride like social media, or if you drop your email in the chat here, and I will send an email to you to kind of follow up and get in touch with you. We meet, well, we have a Signal group, and then we also meet, we kind of organize in Discord, but we meet on, well, we're kind of changing where we meet, but we're going to be meeting on Zoom, I think, kind of every 2 weeks essentially. But yeah, that's all, I think. Yeah, as I say, if you want to get involved, just shoot us a message or pop your email in the chat, and I can send you an email. other than that, if you have any questions for me right now, I can answer them. And yeah, that's the workshop. Yeah, pop any questions in the chat or come off. Yeah, I think